everybody, welcome back. Today we wanted to talk to you about building a community. I've been hearing a lot about how hard it is to build a community when you have little kids, and we've been able to build a community everywhere we've lived, and we've lived lots of places, moving with the military every 3 years. And you too can build a community for your family. So the first thing that you need to do if you want to build a community with your family is talk to people. That sounds so simple, but it's the truth. I think the first step is scary. It is scary to just start a conversation with someone. But do it. It's not hard. And you have to remember that most people, they don't really care about things that are happening outside of themselves. Most people today have very transactional relationships with other people instead of like seeing the other person as an actual human being with a life story and something interesting to offer. A little example of that, in Hawaii, we were living there. I made friends with one of the cashiers at the exchange on post, and I had my appendix had ruptured and I was recovering, and I'd gone to the exchange to get something I needed, but I wasn't quite ready to be up and moving, and I almost passed out at the checkout. And this cashier took me back to the employee lounge and made me tea. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And it was just because over the years, she and I had struck up and had conversations and kind of built a little friendship, and that was part of building a community. You can't do it alone. You can't raise your kids by yourself with no help. It's impossible. That's why so many people sound so frustrated on social media that they can't build a community. You need to also get involved in different types of community things. Let's say a running club. You can find these things on Facebook. A church. Different community-based events that you could go to with your kids and meet people there. That's another way that you can build community. We are made to have friendships and interact with other people. Another important thing you need to do is open your home. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our house is very humble, it's very small, and we've had lots of people up here. We have invited our neighbors up. One of the first things we did when we moved here was meet all of our neighbors. Introduce yourself to your neighbors. It's very important that you have decent relationships with your neighbors in case anything ever happens. That's easier for us probably because we're both from little towns.
I would say in the past, I mean, where we live, it's the middle of nowhere, so people are a little bit more suspicious. I think a lot of people that move, you know, way out into the country, a lot of them, they don't want to be bothered. They want to, you know, be kind of alone and find purpose. It's very interesting the way we met our neighbor.
Which one?
Doug? Yeah, the way we met our neighbor Doug, I'd see him drive his truck like on the property line, and then I kind of walk towards him and he'd drive away.
Yeah.
So, this happened probably 4 or 5 times, and then it was a deer season, and my middle son had shot a deer, but he didn't get a kill shot. And it was probably 3 days later, I look over and there's a deer head stuck on my fence post, on my T-post. And it was like, okay, well, that's probably the neighbor, so I've got just a little bottle of hot damn and just taped it on the fence post and took the horns.
The deer.
Yeah, the antlers home. And then
That's
sure enough, that bottle disappeared off that T-post. And probably 3 or 4 days later, he finally drove his vehicle all the way to our house.
To meet us, finally. He was the hardest one for us to meet. And a little bribe doesn't hurt. But he's helped us out so much, too. Out here, you have to have help to do things.
You do.
And we just went to our other neighbors, which out here you risk getting a gun pulled on you if you just come up on somebody's property unannounced. It's a fact. If you just come up to my property, I don't know you're coming, I'm probably going to have a gun in my hand.
And we do have a few neighbors out here that they would shoot before they would even ask. But you find this out, you know, from your neighbors, because they've had an interaction or they've been told by this individual, like, don't come down my driveway.
And if we can build a community and know our neighbors here, you can definitely do it wherever you live. Yep. This is probably the hardest place we've lived for making friends and building a community, since people tend to be so standoffish. Yeah. But we still managed it, and we get together with them all the time. We had a young family move in from California, and of course everyone is incredibly suspicious of them. It's holler gossip, you know, everybody knew they were here, they had California plates, oh my goodness. And we reached out to, we saw them at the creek. It's a place where people congregate here. We don't have a lot of community-based events. They just kind of spontaneously happen at the creeks. And they happened to be down at the creek, so we stopped to talk to them and meet them. And we invited them up to fry squirrel with us, which was a little scary having somebody come to your house for the first time. You don't really even know them, they're a stranger. So we tried to be non-committal and do an outside barbecue type thing. That's a great way to break the ice with a new person. If you don't know them really well and you aren't sure you want them in your house or your house isn't clean, just have them over for something to do outside. So we fried squirrel with them, and it was kind of rough at the beginning because, you know, it's hard to start a conversation with somebody you don't have a lot in common with, that you have never had a conversation with before, really. And then their 3-year-old son stripped down to his birthday suit and ran around naked as a jaybird, and that loosened it all up for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that kid.
He doesn't wear clothes, no.
Ever.
And it helped them too, because I think they knew he had the propensity to do that, and they were just waiting for him to do that, see how we would react. So you just never know what's going to happen, and you can have a lot of fun. Just if you just open your home to people, and you have to remember they're not going to remember them if you have a mess in your house. They're going to remember how they felt when they were in your house. If they have fun, let's say they invite them over to fry squirrel and play Mexican dominoes or play euchre or whatever, they're going to remember the fun that they had. They're not going to remember that you had dishes in the sink. So don't be afraid to invite people over because your house is like not perfectly clean. Or let's say you're in the middle of a construction project. We had 12 men up for Easter, and this was just
Studs and insulation.
They had the best time ever. We made lifelong friends with them. And I'll give you some tips for having a house that's open to hosting people. Have drinks. Have tea, coffee, soda. So just have things for people to eat and drink, like snacks. Like have a bowl of nuts. These are things that, you know, your grandma used to do. Do those things. And then your house is more inviting for guests who can just pop by whenever. And don't sweat how your house looks. Don't worry about it. Nobody's house is perfect, and they're not going to remember. And if they do remember, they're a jerk, and you shouldn't invite them over again.
Yeah.
I think that's just a fact. And what are some things that we've invited people over for? All sorts
bonfires.
of stuff. Bonfires. Fall
parties.
Yeah, I would cook over an open fire, like a big vat of chili, and we just have people over and sit around the fire. Play for music nights, UFC fights, watching the election results.
Target shooting.
A
lot of my military buddies will come out here because they can shoot whatever gun they want. They can, put tannerite on a tree and blow it up if they want to. We haven't done that. But
no, but that would be fun.
Yeah, maybe. I've always wanted to start a bonfire by like lighting an arrow and then, shooting into, 20 gallons of gas or something.
Yeah. So there's just you can find any reason to have people over. Karaoke. I mean, I could think of a million reasons to have people over and have fun and build community. It's just that first step of talking to people. That's the hardest part. And like I said, the best way to do that is just don't see them as transactional. See them as another human being that has an interesting story. You just haven't learned what that story is yet. And if you start seeing people that way and putting yourself out there by going to community events and wherever it is that people are congregating in your community, you can build a community for yourself and your family.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to, don't just invite everybody in.
Be picky.
Yeah, be picky. I've done previous videos where I say surround yourself by successful people.
Positive and upbeat people too.
Yeah, and people that can contribute to your relationship. And a lot of our neighbors here, they're on point because it takes a tremendous amount of capital to do what we're doing. So if you have a lot of land, and we're one of the smaller landowners
we have 70 acres.
Area.
That's little here.
Yeah, and
in order to manage your property, you need help. You can't buy every single implement for your tractor. It's impossible. So what we've done with our neighbors here is we don't all have the same implements. So we can get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
Like he has a backhoe, and our neighbor Doug has a roller. We don't have a roller. So if our driveway needs to get rolled, Doug does it for us. If Doug needs a ditch, we do that for him. So there's a lot of, it's a symbiotic relationship. We do things for each other.
Yeah.
I always taught my kids about, if you read book 8 of Aristotle's Ethics, he talks about friendship. There's 3 kinds of friends: friends of utility, friends of virtue, and friends of pleasure. And you need all 3. You need to have friends that you can have fun with, and maybe they're not the person you're going to bare your heart to. They're not a friend of virtue. You can't really trust them like that, but they're somebody that you can have fun with. And friends of utility are people who help you out and you help them out. It's a relationship should be 2 ways, not just one way. And if you find yourself in a one-sided relationship, you need to exit that relationship. And you need to make sure you're also returning whatever's being given to you from someone else. So friends of virtue are what you should aspire to have. You're not going to have very many of those. You may end up with 1 or 2 in your entire life. And if you limit your friends to just friends of virtue, then you're going to miss out on a lot of joyful things that life has to offer. It's okay to have friends of utility. Again, don't treat them transactionally. You have to offer things to them too. And it's okay to have friends of pleasure that you just have fun with. We have friends that we only see when we go to the creek.
Yep.
Love them to death, but they don't have anything of utility to offer us, and we don't have anything of utility to offer them, and we don't always even see eye to eye in politics and religion and stuff like that, but we still adore them, and they're great people.
Yep.
So no, everything doesn't have to line up perfectly for you to be able to build a community with other people. You can have differences. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's normal, actually.
You have to know where you stand. You have to understand yourself and your own morals, and then you have to look for that in others. I feel really terrible for people who live in subdivisions and cities. We've lived in both of those places in our past, and it's really difficult to figure people out because they have so much going on in life. They don't really take the time to sit down and talk. It's like everybody's on the go.
Well, and it's very transactional in the suburbs and cities. It's like, okay, I'm going to go into the store, the bodega, the corner store, whatever. I'm going to get what I need and I'm out. And if you talk to me, I'm annoyed because that's not part of my plan. I just want to get what I need and go home.
Right.
And that's sad. If you find yourself doing that, stop. Because your life is going to be very beige. It just will be very beige. You will be much happier if you have a conversation with the person behind the counter. You will. And the world will become a little bit better of a place if people would start treating each other with a little bit more humanity, a little bit more dignity. So.
All right. Well, hey, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you like our content, please like and subscribe. And don't let the thorn and thistles keep you down.